This is Dolany TV, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Crossfield Ball Diamonds here as we take a nice, beautiful Saturday afternoon, a break from what has been a busy day of running around and getting the job done, I guess you could say, to talk about Mr. Stuart Skinner starting game number 3 for the Edmonton Oilers this evening with Calvin Pickard injured and, well, presumably injured on the play with Tomas Hertl there back in the game 2 there. So we'll see what happens here for the Edmonton Oilers. Obviously, plenty to be decided after this game if Pix is still out for a little while. But for Stuart Skinner, everybody, when I did that trade video there discussing Skinner's future following this playoff run, everybody was kind of discussing, well, Stuart Skinner's only one game away from starting. And the counter to that, given how Stuart Skinner has performed so far in these playoffs, is Stuart Skinner is only one game away from giving up 5 goals for the Edmonton Oilers again. And kind of the ridiculous part of the whole sequence for the Oilers so far in these playoffs, whether it be Stu Skinner starting or Calvin Pickard starting, is other than the win-loss ratio, the fact that goaltending really has not stopped a ton of pucks. Like if you look at save percentage, if you look at goals against average, the pucks have not been stopped in bunches by the Oilers. Like Stu Skinner's letting a ton, sub 850 save percentage. Calvin Pickard 889 or something like that is when I checked last night on the old Sportsnet stats, and still a goals against average that doesn't exactly sit here and inspire confidence. But all of a sudden you lose Pickard, who has been making incredible saves at just the right time. I think that's what everybody preached all along about Calvin Pickard, but again, you got to be careful about going out there and wanting to overplay a backup or a career backup just because he makes a couple of big saves for you at critical times and the team seems different in the regular season. Now, the nice part is the Oilers have carried that over to the playoffs. Their goalie makes a big save in Pickard, and then they go pick him up and score a goal. That's been the trend so far this year in the playoffs, and that's been very welcome as an Edmonton Oilers fan, finally seeing another goalie make a big save in a playoff series. And we know, I think the last time we really had that happening on a nightly basis might have been Mike Smith in that games, I want to say 2 through 5 against the games 2 through 5 against those guys, the Calgary Flames. I know we talk a little bit about Stuart Skinner and his performance after Pickard came into the net following the Vancouver little roundabout there for him. But the nice part here for the Edmonton Oilers is, I guess, if you're going to rosy glasses this, is you're turning back to your starter, right? Pickard's done more than you could ever have asked of him. And for the Oilers, well, guess what? You get to turn to your starter, Stu Skinner, who gets to start in his hometown of Edmonton, well, home area anyway, and gets to hopefully put his team on his back tonight like he did in Dallas Game 6, like he did in the back a little bit of that Florida series at times, and deliver a performance that sits here and screams, that's our guy, that's why we have him, that's why we keep him around, because as we know, I mean, I'm not sitting there BSing when I'm talking that there is a real possibility that Stuart Skinner gets traded this offseason. It is quite likely that the Edmonton Oilers, as we know, have talked about, we need a big performance this playoffs in a lot of departments. We need a big performance in terms of goaltending, and I think the Oilers know they kind of, whether the trade market or whether just the options forced their hand to stick with what we had, whether comfortable or not. End of the day is they didn't make an upgrade move in net, and that just kind of leaves you maybe short in the playoffs, some would say. And if you're short in the playoffs and we come up short, I guarantee you there will be change from the Edmonton Oilers goaltending situation from this year. And that's just, again, I think Pickard's done everything to prove he deserves to stay. He's just kind of the guy you like to have in that 30 game 25 game a year slot, and you just need a guy who's reliable for about 45 to 55. And you spot start Rodrigue next year a little bit. Maybe you start the year carrying 3 goalies or end the trade deadline after carrying 3 goalies, whatever it takes to get Rodrigue a whole bunch of ice time next year, and you just solve that problem. But again, you know what? That's all fine and dandy to sit here and talk about and plan, but the off season's long, way away, hopefully, as we learned last year, right? The offseason didn't start until June 24th last year, following a Game 7 against Florida. So, if all goes according to plan here for Stuart Skinner tonight, he has a rock star game. And again, we all hope for that. It's not like even the most critical of Stuart Skinner's haters are hoping he loses, because if you're an Oilers fan and you're hoping Stuart Skinner loses, you're basically just selling off the Oilers' playoff chances, right? I think big thing about tonight is we stole 2 in Vegas. If they come into our barn and steal Game 3, it's a whole different series. We shut the door here, especially if Stu Skinner has a huge performance against a team he struggled 2 years ago into the playoffs against, and all of a sudden you're up 3-0, and Pickard's either available or not available for Game 4. You're talking about slamming the door 4 straight on Vegas possibly, and that is a whole different situation than it's 2-1 and we're going back to Vegas at least for a Game 5. So that's kind of the situation for the Oilers at this point, is we want to see a good performance from Stuart Skinner, whether you have faith, I have faith, anybody has faith, or we're all over the moon excited to see our starter from this season back in net, this time to face a new opponent following a 6-game hiatus so far in the playoffs. Now, color me shocked if Stuart Skinner has a bad game, simply because I think the Oilers, credit to more Cal Pickard than the Oilers, I don't think necessarily, like I said about the goaltending numbers, have cleaned up the issues that led to Stuart Skinner giving up as many goals and struggling in games 1 and 2 against LA as he did. But the thing about Pickard, like I said, is he makes that one save that leads to either a bit of momentum for the Oilers in terms of pushing back, or he makes the save that leads to the goal eventually. So for the Oilers tonight, I don't know if it's you just keep everything to the outside, you just hope Stu doesn't let a squeaker in, and you squeeze out a 4-3 victory at home because the crowd goes bonkers, because it's just a good night, Saturday night, playoff hockey, round 2, it's 25 degrees outside, let's go. But for the Oilers, if you get anything above what Stuart Skinner has done so far these playoffs, like his numbers sitting there at whatever 5.7, 6.7 goals against average, whatever the number is, and an 820 whatever save percentage it is. If you get anything above 850 in terms of a save percentage, and you get anything above, I don't know, 2 or anything below 3.5 goals against average tonight, that's going to be a win for the Edmonton Oilers all night on home ice. You know that, again, if the Oilers find themselves down, they'll find a way to come back. We're making history here, game in, game out. So tonight, you're not, I think realistically, you're not hoping Stuart Skinner impacts the game at all. And in terms of legit, like if you're looking at how do we win this game, if Stuart Skinner is a net negative, you're pretty much guaranteed to win. If Stuart Skinner is a positive, you're guaranteed to win. If Stuart Skinner is at all a negative, of course, the fan base will turn on him and say he's the reason we lost, despite, like I said, I don't know necessarily, even though the Oilers have turned a corner since Game 2 against LA, I don't know if they've necessarily cleaned up the issues that caused Stuart Skinner his problems in Game 1 and 2. But that said, is Calvin Pickard was able to figure it out because he just, made one extra save that Stu never seems to make. So, like I said, tonight, if Skinner is a net negative, does nothing, where it's net zero, whatever you want to say, where it's just, he doesn't impact the game, right, wrong, or otherwise, he has no impact on the final score, that is perfect, right? A 4-3 final, hopefully no overtime. Our hearts could use a little bit of a rest after that overtime game in Game 2. So, yeah, just hopefully for the Oilers, you go out there and you win a hockey game, whether it be on the back of your goaltender or not. And I don't mind if the Oilers just win one, squeak it out, because, they do. That's what it comes down to. If the Oilers can find a way to do that, that's awesome. If Stuart Skinner can find a way to, crush it and give up 2 goals and have 30 saves and really look good and get the Stu chance going at Rogers Place, that, my friends, would be phenomenal. Like I said, as much as I believe there will be a change to the Edmonton Oilers goaltending, as much as it is understood that if there is a change, it would be Stu Skinner being shipped out, one would understand that, again, I don't want to play the local boy angle, but when you've got a kid from this part of the world doing NHL things in the playoffs for the hometown team, no matter where you are, it doesn't matter if you're in Florida, it doesn't matter if you're in Phoenix, it doesn't matter if you're in Toronto, it's just a feel-good feeling when you've got somebody from the local area doing good things for your hometown team. And like I said, that might cause a little bit of favoritism in some people's eyes for Stu Skinner once in a while, but I really don't care. As long as the Oilers go out there and win tonight, that's really all that matters for Stu Skinner. That's all that matters for Calvin Pickard. That's all that matters for the Edmonton Oilers, and that's all that matters for me, friends. I guess quickly, I haven't updated you since we had game two, just to touch on kind of what happened in game two there with Arvidsson possibly injuring McNabb. Quite simply, right, is I was calling for the Oilers to strike first. Frederick ate that cross check in the face, and ultimately it was only a fine for Roy. So one would figure here, as an Edmonton Oilers fan, is I'm pretty happy, all told, to see the Golden Knights lose a pretty impactful player on their roster. That said, just because I'm calling for it, Arvidsson doesn't get suspended, doesn't even get a penalty on the play. The Oilers win 45 seconds after. When I was calling, advocating for the Oilers to strike first and hurt the Golden Knights, I was fine and dandy soaking a suspension for it. Unfortunately, that will not happen for Victor Arvidsson. So what ultimately becomes that is now we're those guys. We're that team. And as much as I said, hey, sometimes to win, most times to win, you got to be unlikable. It just still doesn't feel good, you know? And I kind of have touched on that already. So it's you win at all costs. It sometimes doesn't sit the best, but you know what? I don't think any of us will be talking about Victor Arvidsson's missed penalty and hurting Braden McNabb when the Oilers are lifting the cup on June 23rd. So yeah, that's just kind of it's hopefully temporary here. The little I'm glad, you know, maybe the Golden Knights are a little weakened by losing a D-man. I'm glad we won the game in overtime a few seconds later, but you know, even though I'm sitting here advocating for it, it still doesn't sit the best. So Stu Skinner starts in game number 3 tonight for the Edmonton Oilers. Like I said, Calvin Pickard day to day with a possible leg injury, and you just tonight hope that Stu Skinner has a good game, friends. If you're heading on out here as I'm closing up shop, definitely leave a Stu chant in the comments section here, and let's go Oilers. That's really all there is to be said. It's Saturday night. I have lots of buddies going to the game. Let's hopefully they can go and dance along to La Bamba live at Rogers Place tonight and down here in Crossfield as we wrap up shop. Let's get this going. So yeah, the Edmonton Oilers for Stuart Skinner, a big game, and for the Edmonton Oilers turning to their starter to get the job done. So we'll see what happens here tonight, friends. Thanks for being aboard. As always, I am up on out of here.